Our next title tells us that when destiny calls and it's manifested itself as a talking rooster that's encouraging you to kill the Russian mafia, you should probably just hang up the phone, stop huffing acid, and move as far away from Florida as humanly possible. That's exactly the sort of shit that happens in Florida. In today's humble opinion, we're running and gunning our way through Hotline Miami 2, Wrong Number. When you've got an itch for an adrenaline-pumping, white-knuckle, reaction-based slaughterfest, few games can scratch it quite as well as Hotline Miami. Every single aspect of the game worked to put you on edge and make sure that you were not only staying there, but doing so on the very tips of your toes. It wasn't for the faint of heart. The action was chaotic, with threats coming from all angles, and a single errant bullet spelled out your death. The bumping rhythm of the soundtrack seemed to sync with the blood coursing through the player's veins. The neon visuals were bright and disorienting, and the controls were ever so slightly off to emphasize the urgency of every decision. It was something that I'd never seen before, and an experience that at the time was unrivaled. In many ways, Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number manages to capture the spirit of its predecessor. However, in seemingly just as many ways, it manages to fall flat on its face. The biggest thing Hotline Miami 2 has working against it is the success of Hotline Miami, because when you succeed in creating an experience so immersive and so powerful, the ambitious desire to surpass it is obviously going to be present. And here it's not only present, it's apparent. If I had to rate how hard the developers tried to make this game better than their last on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd have to give them a 2. For too damn hard. The first thing that hinted at this was that the opening tutorial sequence ended with a rape scene. Even though it's revealed that the rape was actually being shot as a scene to a film, the message is clear. We're even edgier and more gratuitously violent than we were before. But of course, that's not the only thing. In fact, nearly every aspect of the game reeks of this even more mentality. It's as if they all sat in a room asking each other how to handle the various game elements. Hey, what should we do about the story? Even more. Who should the game be about? Even more. Which game mechanics should we emphasize? Even more. If I were to ask you if Hotline Miami had a good story, I'd reckon that you'd probably say yes. If I were to ask you if you remembered it, you'd probably say vaguely, which is what made the story of Hotline Miami so good. It was simple, it was abstract, and it took a backseat to the game's action, serving as more of a guideline or backdrop than as a central focus. It provided a momentary respite to keep players from burning out on the non-stop adrenaline, but was skillfully managed so that it didn't quite let them off the razor's edge. Hotline Miami 2 is a clusterfuck, or is it a cluckerfust? One scene, you're an actor reveling in the idea of committing atrocities. The next, you're a soldier in Hawaii. Then you're a fat guy that walks like he's saying, "Oh no, you didn't." Then you're all four members of a gang. Then you're a cop on the edge. Then you're a writer. Do you see the problem here? The story is good and interesting, but it's too complex to serve the same function as it did prior. It's taking up too much of the player's attention, and the troughs of action are too long to maintain the heightened tension that the series was so artfully evoking before. There's so much of the stuff that we might as well call it Plotline Miami. Also, all of those characters I mentioned come with game mechanics completely unique to themselves. Like this guy, right, 2 bear arms. This guy uses his 2 bear arms to shoot 2 machine guns. Or look at all those chickens, there's 2 of them and one shoots a gun and the other has a chainsaw, so you control them both. Then you got Solid Snake, who's thick as hell and his gun shoots nails. Or Zebraman, who's on a roll. Or the writer who can't handle killing people, so he won't use a goddamn gun even in self-defense. Now you might be asking, Jonathan, isn't it good for games to innovate and experiment with new ideas? Yes it is, and I appreciate it. But the problem here is that the essence of the game has been lost. Simplicity was what made the game, and it's been replaced by senseless complexity to the point that the game doesn't come off as hard so much as it does stressful and frustrating. So much more of it seems to be chance, right down to whether I'm going to successfully execute a downed enemy or dodge roll over him, giving his partner enough time to stand up and kill me. And what the fuck is this? When am I ever going to need to fucking Don't even get me started on the fucking military levels, by the way. They're what made me stop playing the game. I had to put it down. I fucking hate those things. Even the level design and enemies in this game feel like they're overcompensating. Maps are huge and so many of them are open with little cover. There are legitimately points where I'll die to an enemy simply because there's no way I could have possibly determined where he was because the map was so goddamn big. And it felt cheap, and unfair. Then there are parts of the map that you can't really tell whether or not it constitutes as cover until you're shot in the back of the head. And when you're not dealing with any of that, you're dealing with them simply adding to the number of enemies to boost the difficulty artificially. In Hotline Miami, every movement had to be planned in a split second and then executed. Here it's pop out of cover to get their attention, draw them back to your cover, and kill them, which stilts the action negatively. Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number can normally be found on the Steam store for $14.99, though it has been on sale for as low as $3.74, at which point it is definitely a steal and I could not recommend it more. I'd say that $15 is a fair place to start, but personally would feel more comfortable waiting for something closer to $10. For all of its flaws, I still had a ridiculously fun time playing Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number. I just feel like the developers were so gung-ho about improvement that they overshot the mark and lost sight of what made the game special to begin with. Still, I'd rather have developers trying new things than pumping out uninspired game after game and relying on previous success in the series to carry future titles, so all things considered, I'd say this one earns a 7 out of 10. Overzealous in its efforts, sure, but in the moments that it actually captures its former balance, it's a blast. Thank you everyone for watching, and to Denaton Games for making Hotline Miami 2 Wrong Number a reality. I sincerely appreciate your willingness to innovate and desire to improve. The passion shows. Just don't lose sight of what truly defines your game's character. Go on with your bad selves and stay awesome, everyone.